So let's begin with Niladri.
Yeah, so I think all of you know the topic we selected for today is the self-publishing industry. And I think we all belong to the self-publishing industry by some degree or the other. So, uh, so here's what I wanna start with. I mean, I wanna start with how I look at the self-publishing industry of today. Okay, Amazon and Smashwords and everything. Uh, I think it's great. I think the advent of the platforms like Amazon and Smashwords have been absolutely great because without these platforms, if there was only traditional publishing as it was like 15 or 20 years ago, I think a lot of writers like us wouldn't have been able to get a work out. And I think it's been amazing in that way that we can at least we can put our work out for people, to read. Otherwise, we'd all be writing for ourselves and our friends. But having said that, I think I have seen something recently in the past 5 or 6 months. I've read a few works, from independent authors, and I think that's the reason I selected this topic today, self-publishing industry, is because there's so much of work which is just, I don't want to say the word, but it's mediocre. And here I'm not going for the writing or the story because I know that's subjective. I mean, people can like different stories. I'm talking about the very basics of writing, like grammar and editing. So I think that needs to be, if I'm an author, I think I should not only look at myself. I think I should look at how my work is affecting all the other independent authors. Because if a person picks up an independent book, buys that book out of Amazon, and that person is not satisfied with how the book is formatted or edited or how the grammar is, chances are that he might not buy 10 other independent books. I think because there is no filtering process in the self-publishing industry, there is no editor who looks at your work and sort of gives this stamp to it. I think the onus is very much on writers to put out work which is polished, which looks as much polished as a traditionally published book. And I think that's very important. So if anybody wants to add something on that, please go ahead.
True, because I bought this thing, this Nine Circus. After BookTube gushed about it, I even went for the Song of Achilles. After BookTube gushed about it, I was very reluctant to invest on these books because I had no idea who the writers were. I had no idea what was there, how they would, like what is the quality of their work. But I'd say these platforms are helping us to put ourselves out there. It is the writer's responsibility to polish the work till it shines, and because I'm writing for my readers, and I should be thinking about how readers will react to my writing, because my future depends on that. The first book, if it bombs, I'm there. If it does not, I'm not there. Then I'll have to find a pen name and then I'll have to write. So I think every writer should think my work would be read, because otherwise there is no point in writing. We're writing for a mass. When writing for ourselves, fine, I understand. Stephen King said we are telling ourselves the stories when we are writing, but still we're writing for the mass. Everybody dreams about being a bestseller, I guess, when nobody can say no. So we need to do that, and I can understand editors are very expensive. So it is ourselves, means like we need to read every line. We need to put the lines on Grammarly if that is required. But we need to make it in a way that people will appreciate. At least 5 people will appreciate it. And that is my opinion. You can beg to differ. Anybody else? Please
So
speak up.
whatever you said is actually whatever you said is actually it's really reasonable, because when we go to a, let's say, established publishing house to get our works published, or for an editor, you go for an editor. These people are not only experienced in editing, but also they have several resources to popularize the book, to advertise it, because like you said, everybody wants to be a bestseller today, and for being a best-selling author, or being a bestseller, or a best person in any industry, talent is not all you need. You need a bit of advertising, you need a bit of
Not bit of
resourcing.
advertising. You need to promote yourself like crazy. Means that is the main thing. You need to promote yourself,
Exactly.
and then you become who you are. But even then, if I
That-
promote myself like a bestseller, start calling myself a bestseller. But when my book comes out and you read it and you find it is crap totally, then you wouldn't buy my second book. So, and
Exactly.
yeah,
And
Chances are
authors
that you
might not
might not
have,
buy books of other authors as well. Chances are that you just won't buy
yes,
self-published books,
and
and
it
that hurts
happened
yes.
to
all of
me.
us.
Yes.
It happened to me. Like we have a responsibility.
It happens a lot of times. We
Hmm.
read a book, like I read a Chetan Bhagat book once, and that just changed my entire take on Indian authors. So that just made me really reluctant to invest in Indian authors. Then I started investing later on when Amish Tripathi had anything. But
Yeah, I was
still,
about to say
it just
read
changes your outlook.
Amish. I was about to say read Amish, and then your
Yes,
perception
I'm
will
a big
change.
fan of Amish Tripathi, but this the idea changes. Then you don't want to invest in any other book, even if you hear that it's a good book. You don't want to invest in it.
True, true, true. I understand. I totally agree. And because of that only, I also stick to, Western writers sometimes. But Amish is a very good writer. He's exceptional.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Mahesh.
Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Mahesh Soni. I have been self-published as well as I have been traditionally published.
Mm-hmm.
My minor characters, major stories has been published by Redomania,
Mm-hmm.
whereas my books, the story of my second marriage, four stories of love, hope and desire, and my spiritual journey are available on Amazon.
Okay.
I feel that there are 2 points here. It's not that always self-published is bad or Indian authors are bad. Depends on multiple factors. Firstly, the kind of visibility you get. I don't know whether I should mention it or not. You see the pen to publish winners. I read a few winning books and I was surprised how did they win. At the end of the day, it was popularity contest. The number of downloads you got, and the authors, they have spent insane amount of money to get the downloads. So that is there. And one more factor which governs buying indie books is the price. What Amazon does is that right now they have got minimum 49 rupees for a Kindle book. But if your Kindle book does well, they give you promotional offers. Then your book will be made available for 9 rupees, 19 rupees, 29 rupees, and in that discounted price. So anybody will be eager to buy that book. For example, I have personally bought those kind of books from Indian authors, many authors also. A book for 9 rupees, a book for 19 rupees. And some of them were so good that I really liked them. So the kind of visibility you get through this kind of promotional offers, through self-advertising, and merely by seeing the title, you see the cover page of the book everywhere, and one fine day when you come across the browsing section, you are tended to buy that particular book. So the book has to be visible, and unfortunately in India there are more authors and less readers. That is what is happening today.
And even lesser
Mainly.
publishers.
Yeah.
No, no, it's a self-publishing industry. That is when because of self-publishing industry, most of us are here. So I totally
Yeah.
agree. We need to because we are working on this thing. Some of us are putting on years to write a book,
Yes.
and we would want
Yes.
it to be out there, but still we need to
Yes.
polish it.
Yes.
When I was
Yes.
getting started, I had no idea ki I needed to polish it like this. So I'm learning. So we all are learning, but still, this is very important. We at least make people understand that self-publishing writers, self-published writers are real writers. Because somebody said, "Oh, you're a self-published writer," then you're not a real writer. So that is not the thing. We all are real writers because we are writing.
Yeah.
That's because we don't have the. I'll come to Spencer now. I think. Yeah, Spencer.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to contribute into that.
Yeah.
My name is Spencer Fantastic, and you guys can find me just about anywhere, Twitter, YouTube, or on my website.
Okay.
But I think that because you're published by a big publishing house does not necessarily mean that your work is good, because big publishing houses care more about how sellable your book is rather than whether it's good or not. I assume most of us have read 50 Shades of Grey, and we know that the writing for that isn't the best, and yet E.L. James has made millions off of it because it was a very marketable book.
Okay, yeah.
And something that I find that a lot of writers are struggling with is, especially for own voices, if you're writing your own point of view for race issues or being queer or anything like that, and you submit it to a big publishing house, a lot of the times what they care about is if your book is queer enough or talks about race issues enough. So that can be a really big barrier, especially for people who want to read books with diverse characters, but not have to get into those things. I mean, we want queer characters to end their stories happily for once and stuff. So I feel like that can be a really big barrier towards getting what we really want published because we're considered not marketable enough.
True.
So
Just
I would like
that.
to go to Anusha here. Anusha,
Yeah.
hi.
Yeah, hi. So I just recently self-published through an agency that is Lapsus Creation. Conversations with Coherent World is my poetry book. And although I've self-published through Kindle Direct, I didn't really see that helping me in any way. So I chose to unpublish my book recently. So I'll tell you two sides to it. That is people who are starting up new, right? And they still want to feel validated as a person belonging to the writing community, just don't have patience. Let's be honest, like when you are starting, we don't really have that patience in us. Like, let's wait, give it an year, refine our work, and then publish it. Like, and even my first book, Sky Album, where I also selected best pictures of whatever I clicked of the sky and my interpretations of the sky, and I made it into a book, and I self-published. Apparently, my tone of language was so bloggish or casual that many people said that you could have waited or given it more a story context to it, and also tell you how you build your relation with the sky, and then you could have made it more better. So I heard a lot of mixed reviews about it, and whereas it was so precious to me that I couldn't take the first set of criticism. Although when I reflect back and I go back to my own work, I understand that we evolve over time and we need to accept that. So again, I think one major thing that we all need to focus as like establishing or aspiring writers is that we constantly go back to our work and understand where we can improvise and how do we get better content out there. Probably starting troubles are always there. We might make our starting mistakes, but that doesn't mean that we should stop or get demotivated. So that's about it. And I also read a couple of books because I hunt for books like anything. Like I download at least 5 books a day. So I recently got some books from Notion Press and Half Baked Beans, especially the poetry genre, because I was trying to explore what other people are writing and what are their writing style. I could see both kind of content. That is, people who have self-published just directly through KDP, some of them had really great content, whereas the books from Notion Press and HPB didn't really move me so much or get to me so much. So there is like, I think both the sides to the story where hybrid agency also add up to the mediocrity there. So because you're just paying upfront and they are publishing it on your behalf and they're not really filtering the content. As long as
No,
you're
they
paying,
don't do that.
right?
They totally don't do that. Means they say ki they will do the editing till this much of word count, but they don't do that. I have seen, means from my experience.
Right. I think they were just limited to the spelling check and all of that, but they're not going to help you refine your content, make it look more nicer, and establish the whole story building or the connection. Because in my poetry book also, I realized some people who have given me feedback, they have told me that probably the order of poems could have been better. We don't really see the connection. But when I wrote and gave my manuscript to them, so they said, will you give us the liberty of changing the order? Because we don't see the flow at all. So I let them do it because I thought they're professionals. they will know the editing aspect well, and they will do that. So I gave them that liberty. But somewhere I also got heard back from my friends that you did a great job, your poems were great, but we couldn't, when we moved on from one poem to the other, the connection was just not there. It just felt two disconnected pages. So I was like, where did I go wrong? So again, I think although we understand the factor that mediocrity will be a huge setback for other writers out there, but we should also understand that could be a real honest mistake the other person is making, and no one was there to guide them in the process, that you can actually do these steps before you get to publish. Because the ease of convenience that we have today, that we have Kobo, Smashwords, even Juggernaut books for that matter, we are able to publish our books for free now. So I think the mode of convenience has become so much that everyone wants to write, but they don't really understand what it takes to be a proper or a real writer. And it's a continuous journey, and it's not just like you just put your work out there and it's just about promoting it, marketing it. No, you evolve, and it's like a package in itself. Like you have
It
your
takes
upgrade
multiple
version
tries.
every year. Exactly. So
It takes multiple tries to get it right.
correct. Yes.
So
I
this is
think I
a
think what
life.
I've seen, okay, what I've seen, okay, a lot, like what Anusha said, okay, there is very little patience among writers. I mean, people who are self-published.
Of course,
I'm not saying
everyone
everybody,
wants to
but
be published. Like everyone is in a rush to just be the number one person out there, and that's just not possible. Like you cannot give everyone a chance. Everyone cannot be a number one best-selling author, but you can just hope and better yourself day by day. Like Shubhangi said, it takes multiple tries to get stuff right. So that's the thing. You write, and then you edit, and then you go on with it. But one more thing that I would like to add to what Anusha said is that to every author that wants to start in the self-publishing industry, the main thing that we lack is that we often don't know the market trends, and that is what the publishers know. Because right now, if I talk about right now, then it is the wake of the BLM movement in America, and obviously the publishers will look for more black oriented content and people of color, and so it's not like everyone is writing about black people. People write about different things. So that's what is proves to be a major setback for every self-published author. Like you are putting your content out there, and then people will not read it because it's just because it's not trending, or you know that affects your morale. And
But that is a
yes,
yeah,
Spencer.
Yeah, I
Yes.
was. Why are we going for self-publishing route? Because our work doesn't fit in a one particular genre. It doesn't fit in the trend. We want to publish the story which we want to tell, but which publishers don't feel that it is marketable. So we are going the self-publishing route. That's what I feel. So self-published authors should not be worried about trends, and you never know what trend will come. Huh? Until Chetan Bhagat came on the scene, there was no trend of three friends and college romance stuff like that. Until Amish came on the scene, there was no genre called mythological. Now everybody is writing mythology. The only three genres which are selling is mythology, erotica, and thrillers. That's it.
But
Spencer was
Yeah,
again,
Spencer, something to say, I think.
I was going to say that the big thing that we all seem to agree that we're missing is the marketing aspect. So I think that it's really important not to discount small publishing houses. A lot of the times when we think about being published, we think about being published by a really, really big house. Whereas you don't need that. A small house can get you some, they already have some followers. They most likely have a niche that they're trying to publish. So they would be more likely to want to publish your work if you fit into that niche. And the followers that are following them more likely are into that niche. So they're more likely to want your story. So for wanting to be a really successful writer, you need to have a dedicated fan base as opposed to just selling a lot of books. And smaller publishing houses can be kind of like a middle for self-publishing and marketing, I feel.
Yeah, true.
Shubhangi, right? Yeah, she was about to say something.
To that, no, I was about to comment on what Mahesh and Spencer right here said. Like when Spencer said about mentioned 50 Shades of Grey. Eroticas were a big thing then. Even today it is. It never goes out of there. And similarly, when she talked about a devoted fan base, we all know how we all come from Wattpad, I guess. So we all know about After, and we all know how it turned into a bestseller, just because the book had a dedicated fan base right inbuilt in Wattpad. So when
people
it
were
published,
reading it had people like more than I guess 80 million people were reading it on Wattpad. It's one of the biggest books on Wattpad.
And still, it got such a huge response once it got published.
I mean, it was made into a movie. Obviously, people were
very much interested in that.
Yeah.
So, like, I read this interview by the writer, and what I got to know, one thing that was really important is even if you're self-publishing, we all know that the writer after first published that entire book, the series on Wattpad, and then she went forward. So it was kind of like self-publishing. So when she did that, she said that she had a group of friends. She had a group of friends who were interested in writing. So they helped her to edit out whatever was necessary and basically cut around the edges and make it more polished, make it a readable book. So I think if you're trying to self-publish, then again, one thing that becomes important is having the right contacts, having the right people to help you. Because just like everybody over here has mentioned, self-published books many a times become unpolished, casual. Anusha right here said that it's too casual. Her work was deemed too casual. Maybe if she had people to help her, maybe if she had people to guide her through it, then she would have made it in the first try itself. So I think again, having the right people to help you out here becomes an important thing. So I think authors who go for self-publishing should have a little networking in that area and know what it takes.
Actually,
yeah, they should, but the problem is that not all people have people who are good beta readers who are into books. I mean, personally, till a couple of years ago, I had no friends who read books. Nobody. So it was all on me. So whatever I had to do, I had to read my own work 15 times through sort of 15 different eyes, you know. I had to sort of channel my thoughts in a way that, okay, I'm not the writer anymore, I'm the reader. So what do I expect out of it? So you cannot be dependent on other people to always rectify your work as a self-publisher. Sometimes you've got to do that yourself. And for you to do that, you need to be patient with your book. I mean, you've written something, that's great. You want it out on Amazon or Smashwords, Kobo, anywhere. That's great. We all want that. But there's no point in bringing out a half-assed effort, you know. Just give it more time. Have patience with it. Because no platform is running away. Self-publishing industry is not going away anytime soon. Okay, it's going to be there long after we are gone. Okay. So the point is be calm with it. Read your work 4 times, 5 times, as many times as required. You know, and don't read it always as a writer. Because we want certain passages that we like, but those passages may not be important for a reader. You know? So you have to edit those out. So to be an editor of your own book, it's a difficult thing because we like to keep everything we write in a book. That's why we've written them in the first place.
That's why you should read the book after at least 2 months. Means after writing, You should leave it, and after 2 months you start
Yes.
reading it, and then it does
Yes.
not
Come back with a fresh
belong to
mind. Yes.
you.
Come back with a fresh
Yeah.
mind. Exactly. Because see, you may say that you're writing for yourself, but the moment you're
Nobody
putting a book
does.
out on Amazon, you're putting a book out on Amazon or wherever, and you're asking people
Nobody
to
does. Nobody
pay
writes
money
for
for your book.
themselves.
No, people say that, okay, that I'm writing for myself. But when you're putting a book out
I
on
don't.
Amazon or wherever, and you're asking people to pay money for your book, that means you have a responsibility to give them a good product.
True.
I have a slightly different experience. What you write a polished book, what next? Now I'll give you an example. My first book, The Story of My Second Marriage. It was not that good book because it was my first book, but it's still selling, so I can't pull it down. Whereas my another book, My Spiritual Journey, which according to me is my best work till date, I wrote it by pen name Swami Ujas. It is totally error free. It is very good books. That is what I am receiving compliment from various authors, various friends of mine. But that book is not selling. So the book which has got errors, that is selling even after 4 or 5 years of publication. And the book from which I had got great expectation, that is not going anywhere. And speaking of loyal fan base, all of us have loyal fan base. The only thing is that they ask copies for people.
True. No, actually, when we are going to self-publishing, suppose whoever is going for self-publishing, one aspect we forget that it is like a business, means like we're setting up a business. It is like two ways. Means you market your brand, you market the product. So product marketing and brand marketing, your own marketing and your product marketing, these two should go together. And once it goes together and these two allies, you will definitely be out there, because you need to first bring yourself out there as a brand. First you become the one, means the face of your product, and then you market your product. Because after you become known and familiar to everybody, like you create engagement, you create rapport with everybody, people will start buying your book because of that goodwill. So these are the things, means this brand marketing and product marketing, this is a business totally. Means even for the writer, this is a business.
But business comes with a budget. We should have a budget. How much I am willing to invest for this particular.
There are ways, means like ways to put yourself out there for free.
Because we don't have a budget, that's why we are self-published authors.
Yeah, but even self-published authors, they are spending a fortune to market their book, to edit their book.
No, but a lot of people does not know that. But there are traditional publishing houses. Means I'm not going to name any name, but they will say your book is very good. They will publish your book, but they will co-publish your book. So you put some money on, they will put some money.
Yeah, there are various ways. Buyback, you have to buy so and so copies back. There are various ways.
Exactly.
Even
there are various ways.
I received a mail.
I received
a mail a couple of days back from some. I won't name the publishing house. It was for a co-author project, and they said it's a write a book as a co-author, 30 to 40,000 words, but then you have to buy 100 copies of your book back for 25,000
They
rupees.
have given you lesser number like 100 copies. There are publishers who say that you have to buy 1,000 copies of your book to get it published.
And not just this publisher, now Spencer is with us. Abroad the situation is different. Literary agents, they don't charge you upfront. They take a take from the contract. They could take a cut from the contract. But here in India, we have got some people who call themselves literary agents, but they charge you upfront. You have to pay 20,000 rupees upfront. And that is something very different from the concept of literary agents abroad. Spencer, I think you should throw light on it. How are things in your country?
Well, they may not charge upfront, but it can be very difficult to get an agent to be invested in your work, because before you can even sell it to the house, you got to sell it to the agent.
John Grisham's Time to Kill got rejected by 15 agents, I heard. And so I was reading that day.
But do you think it's still easier to get traditionally published through an agent, rather than how the setup is here in India, where there are no agents? You have to just go and submit the manuscript to the publisher with your unsolicited submission. Which do you think is easier? Is it easier to publish to an agent?
Actually,
Sorry. I feel like anything really depends on who you know. So if I know a really bad agent, but you happen to know somebody who has like a lot of Twitter followers or something like that, you're probably going to be more successful than me.
It's social media following and social media engagement that really matters nowadays, because they will want to see.
Traditional publishers ask for it. Give links to your social media pages, the number of followers which you have, plus you have to submit a marketing plan also, even to the traditional publishers.
And after that, they will ask you to co-publish, like just partnering with them. So I know I'm not naming any name, but I had this.
Even bigger names. Now let me take a name. Jacko Publication. It's a very good, decent publication house, but they have got a format in which you have to submit your proposal, and in that you have a separate section dedicated to marketing plan.
Okay.
So this is happening with big houses also, which are really good publication houses in the country.
As I was saying, this is a business.
I would like to come.
Yeah. Now whether you are getting traditionally published or whether you are getting self-published, author has to play an active role in marketing these days.
Absolutely, that day is gone. Means when writer used to write and submit. So you need to put yourself out there. They need to know. Means I need to know you first, and then I'll go buy your book. It's like that only.
Yeah, in today's world, as long as you're writing the book, you're a writer. But once you're done writing the book, you become an entrepreneur. Because if you don't become an entrepreneur, your book is not going to work. No matter you're
even when you're writing the book,
traditional.
When you're writing the book, you still become that businessman, business person, because you need to put yourself in the reader's shoes, and you will need to find out whether the reader will find this whatever you are writing exciting or not. It's like it is continuous.
I still think that's part of writing more than business. I think as writers we should be aware of what the people like. That's a creative challenge.
I
think that's a creative challenge more than a marketing challenge.
There is another aspect. We are speaking of the kind of writing, the genre, poetry and short stories. Traditional publishers say that there is no market for it.
Exactly. They will say there is no market and people wouldn't buy it because there is no reader. Like a collection of short stories, they will totally miss. They are looking out for right now. They're looking out for not even standalone novels. They will ask for a series, means like a trilogy or something like that.
I am working on a short story book right now. Okay,
please.
I'm working on a short story book. Okay, and I hear that short story doesn't have market, and that's true. It doesn't have a market. But then I also feel that there are people who prefer short stories because they're short reads. People have lesser attention spans and they don't want to spend a month with a novel. They want to know a story. They want to be told a story, but they want to be told a story in 5,000 words. So I think there is a market for short stories.
No, we're talking about
publishers.
publishers.
In the past also, short stories as a genre has worked immensely. Like for Roald Dahl, Malgudi Days, one of the best short story books we received. Malgudi Days was, connected in a vague form. It was set in Malgudi, but it was short stories of so many different people. We have, Ravindra Singh, Love Stories That Touch My Heart by Ravindra Singh. It is a collection of short stories from different authors. Similarly, there were so many short stories. So short stories as a genre work. But people won't invest now.
These two names which you took, R.K. Narayan and Ravindra Singh, they were already established names, and thereafter they got a chance to write a short story.
Yeah.
We can forget that. They had a market.
That's the point. That's the point. They already had a market. They had a base on which they could do anything at that point of time because they're best-selling authors.
Maybe because after writing a couple of novels, the novelist, he loses track or he doesn't have a plot for his next novel. So he ends up compiling his few short stories and sells them under his name.
Same goes for Jeffrey Archer. He published his short story collection after becoming Jeffrey Archer.
Yeah. They get a chance. But what about a new short story writer?
Well, they'll go self-publishing where they'll go to Amazon, they'll go to Kobo, Smashwords. I mean, that's there.
Yeah, that is there.
I mean, that's the good part about it. That's the good part about the times we're living in. That if a publisher rejects your manuscript, it's not the end of the world for you.
No, that
Yes.
is
No,
the
there
thing.
is
Your work
there
can
is
still come out. The point
there is
is your
a
work should be something that the pro it's a see it's a product. At the end of the day, what I feel is
yes,
a product.
yes, yes,
And
yes,
if somebody is
Absolutely.
paying to buy that
yes.
product, it's your
Yeah.
responsibility to give a good product. And that's what you have
Yes,
to concentrate on. That's
yes,
it.
yes, yes. There is a positive side of the story too. There are a couple of authors. We don't know their names, but they are minting money. Their books are selling on self-publishing platforms. They are unknown to common people. They are unknown to authors like you and me, but still they are selling. Means they have figured out something which you and me have not. So even that
It's
needs to
about
be looked.
cracking the code. See, it's
Yeah.
about knowing what works for you because things,
Yes.
I mean, what might work for you might not necessarily work for me.
Yes.
So it's very important to know that what works for
Yes.
you. And
Yes.
I'll go back to what Anusha said about her people giving reviews that her poems did not, had no connection. I think that's what you said. I mean, that is because when we are reading a book like a short story collection or a poetry collection, we have an expectation in our mind that it's all connected together, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Every poem can talk about something different. I think that was my idea when I brought out my poetry collection. That's why I didn't want to stick to a central theme because everywhere I read before I sort of brought the book out, everywhere I read in every article almost, they said that you should have a central theme running through your book. And it made no sense to me to harp on about one thing in particular throughout 50 poems. So I wanted to talk about separate things. So I segmented my book into 3 parts and I just let it be. So you can't always follow the trend about what people expect. You sometimes have to go with your gut.
Hey, because there is a pitfall of following trend. Say, right now rom-com is the trend, and I'm not a rom-com writer. I'm a thriller writer. I try to write rom-com because of the market. So what happens now? What will it? Is the book will read like I don't know what it will read like. So I would have to write rom-com to find out. But I think people, yeah.
There is another trend, now these stories also, they need not be connected or they need not have central theme. I got one story published in collection published by Ridomonia. It is known as, the collection is known as Defiant Dreams. And my story is named as Yamuna Ma's Hand. And these stories, there is, I guess, something 26 stories in that particular collection, but they're sold as standalone on Juggernaut. So each story is sold individually also. So even that is the trend.
No, means actually,
My story is for 10 rupees. Yamuna Ma's Hand is for 10
You need
rupees.
to know what works for you. I mean, as Anasua said, okay.
Yes.
I mean, I'll just give you an example, okay. If a Wes Anderson movie does well, and then Christopher Nolan wakes up and says that I'm going to make a movie like Wes Anderson, he's not going to be able to make that.
Yes.
Because that's not how he makes movies. So he knows what works for him.
Yes.
Just to show versatility, you don't have to, dip your feet into all genres.
Exactly.
Stick to what you know.
But at the same time, when you're in the industry, you should know all the trends of the industry. That's what I feel.
Sorry?
I said, when you are in the industry, you should know all the trends in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, you should know, you should keep an eye on that. You should try to, but you should not completely change your genre because the trend is in a certain way. So I'll write that only.
Yes.
Because that won't work for you.
Yes.
You have to know what is your strong suit, and you have to stick to that. You need to have a conviction on your creative, whatever creativity you have got inside you. You need to know about that.
Yeah.
I'll come to Anusha again. So Anusha, would you like to add something on that?
No, that's what I was saying. I like John Green, but that does not mean I would be able to write like him. It's like his genre, and I'm a high fantasy writer, and that works for me. So it is like it's not following the trend. It's like whatever you can do it with in a way people appreciate it. So that is like polishing it, keep polishing it until you are satisfied with your own work. And that's why
I would like to come to Anusha here. Anusha, would you like to add something on that?
Yeah, about that, I think a majority of the role that becomes a deciding factor is the placement of your books. sometimes it's a better fit as a short story than something like a contemporary fiction or something very different. Because poetry can be a subset of a non-fiction also, and poetry can be standalone also, because poetry has evolved over how Shakespeare sonnets were and how people are starting to write now. It's like totally different, and people of today are not following any kind of rhyming scheme. And I also am a free verse abstract kind of a poetry person. So I think that also depends on how you place your books. It could be like you are writing a thriller, but probably the central theme of the whole book was rom-com, like just stating what the reference was made here. So I think knowing the market trends, just like we all discussed now, I think that would help a lot on how you place your books. And I think Amazon lets you do that. Like it lets you choose the 3 subsets of where your book would belong, would ideally look categorize it. I'm not sure of other platforms of how they let you place it under. That's about it. And I think I have to agree to Niladri, like how you should stick to what you think you're good at. And especially when I heard people saying that they didn't find a connection, but I said the title itself justifies the whole thing. It's like conversations with coherent words. So that doesn't mean that every conversation has to have a connection. So I had to get back to them saying that, look, like I have justified it this way. Possibly I could have made a stronger way or a better way of communicating the same thing, but you might not be able to see it as I am seeing it. And since it has been my first ever uh, published version with an agency, because the other books that I've done is through KDP. So this was the first step forward where I took help of external agents to get this work published. So I think that way I know how much uh, other side of the things gets affected, and external factors that play a lot of role, like the page count, the theme, how you order them, what kind of illustration that goes in part of the book. Although my book only had 5, but I think they added some value to it. Definitely, yes, because I personally also like them a lot. So I think placement also helps a lot. So it again depends on how audience is taking it. So that should be not just the deciding factor, but it could be a pivot also. So you will have to take it through a multiple trial and see how it is taking. I think that's when the beta readers will help you a lot to understand how you're doing and how is your work coming up and how audience are picking it up before you actually launch your book. Because I think that's a call you can personally take and take time to work on it and understand what would work for you. I think in that way we can at least format our book in multiple different ways and show it to our close knit friends and understand what is working well with majority of the folks.
That's exactly the point. So you're taking your
Completely
time with
agree.
it. You're not in a rush to put it out. That is, I think that is very important. I think one of the main attributes of a writer is patience. I mean, you cannot write a novel in over 7 days or 3 days. It takes time to write. I'm putting together a short story collection. It's almost 7 or 8 months, and I'm still writing it. And then it will go to editing, it will go to formatting. So it will be like 8 to 9 months more before I can even think of bringing it out. So it takes time. So I think I recently read a book. I won't say who the author is. I mean, that author is on Twitter, part of the Twitter writing community. But I won't name them. But I won't say the story was bad. The story was good. The concept was good. But the writing was lazy. It just seemed like the first draft. And I think we all know that it's said that the first draft is you telling us of the story. So it just felt like they wrote the first draft and they liked whatever they wrote. They did not bother to beta read it. They did not bother to format it or edit it. They just put it out on Amazon because Amazon has no filtering process. And they've put a price like what, $5 into it. $5 is the price of the book, $4.99. So I'm asking people to pay me almost $5. I'm asking people to pay me almost more than 300 rupees. And what am I giving in return? I'm giving in return a messed up manuscript. So if a person is buying a book for the first time and they get that kind of a book, I mean, they might say, I'll not waste money on independent books. I'll buy books from traditional publishers because they have been through a filtering process. An editor has read them, they have been proofread, they have been beta read, they have just gone through every process of publishing. So I'll just stick to that. Why waste my hard-earned money on books that are, just a mess? No matter what the story is. I mean, your story might be great, but it's about how you present the story. It's not about how great your story is.
Anusha said right here. I totally agree with Anusha right here. I'm working on a book. It's a poetical thriller where I've written poetries for a very long time. So I just decided to randomly put my poetries in. But instead of using a free verse format, I went for rhythm. Instead of randomly putting it somewhere, I made a story out of it, and that poem became kind of like a preface of what is yet to happen, or like what it's like a culmination of what just happened. So the protagonist just pens down her thoughts. So something like that. And from what I see, I just started writing month ago or something, and I have 200 reads or something, which I think is really good. So I think it's all about the placement and the patience you have, because if you are putting out a messed up concept, or if you are not putting enough thought in it, then you might as well not publish it. You might as well just keep it with yourself, because putting out something that is not polished, or putting out something that is not worth it, might just mess up with your own credibility and your own position as an author. Because if in future, if you have a good manuscript, if you have something terrific, nobody is going to believe you. You will be a boy crying wolf. You have something so messed up in the past, nobody is going to believe you in the future.
Firstly, it is a misconception that traditionally published books are error-free. I'll give you examples. God is a Gamer, published by Penguin, I guess, by Ravi Subramaniam. It has got so many mistakes, even grammatical mistakes. Secondly, standalone books of Ruskin Bond, published by Rupa and Company. Standalone, I'm not speaking about a collection, but single books, Angry River and names like that. The Blue Umbrella, there are multiple typographical errors. Secondly, all of us, all the self-publishing authors, they have a dream of making a transition to traditional publishing. But at the same time, I know many authors who are traditionally published, but yet consciously they are going the self-published way, because the kind of profits which they are making in self-publishing route, they are not getting those kind of profits or royalties the traditional way. So I think this aspect has also to be considered. Merely because something is traditionally published by big name, it does not mean that it is error-free. That is what my personal experience has been.
So those authors, they use the traditional publishing.
That doesn't mean that you'll make a lot of money.
They use the traditional publishing houses as a channel to cultivate a fan base, and then they move to self-publishing. So that now they have a fan base, now they have a loyal inbuilt readership. Now that people know that person, they go to self-publishing, where they can publish, where they can guarantee that people are going to read it. So traditional publishing will provide them with the fan base, and then they can move to self-publishing, where first of all they know the game, and second of all they have an inbuilt readership. So they won't have to cultivate it, they won't have to start back from the square one. Because you would also agree, sir, that it's bit difficult to cultivate that readership in self-publishing.
It is very difficult, not big difficult. For traditional way also it is very difficult. For self-publishing way also it is very difficult.
Spencer had a point, I think.
Yes, yeah. I actually was going to say that about 2 weeks ago, I was watching B.E. Schwab on her Instagram live show, and she was talking about the discrepancies in large publishing houses and the fact that most big authors, even if you're selling a lot of books, you aren't making the money that you really need to. Plus the fact that I could put in my very first novel and a publishing house could give me $10,000 for it, and someone else could submit their very first novel and a publishing house could give them $1 million for it. Like, who's to really say whose idea is better when it's somebody's first book at the same time? There's definitely needs to be more standards, I guess, for pay for writers with big publishing houses.
Adya, would you like to comment now?
Yeah. Yep, sure. Look, like I would like to, I had a point there when Anusha was talking about the beta readers thing. So see, if you are self-publishing, what I personally think should be important is that before you publish, you should at least find a community. Even if not, it's a fan base. A community is different than a fan base. Community is like people who write, like they might be your friends or fellow writers, and they contribute in your work, they point out the flaws, and the best place you can find, it can be anywhere. It can be Twitter, it can be your Instagram, it can be YouTube, it can be Wattpad, but having a community really matters, because they will just read, they will not only read your work from a reader's perspective, but they will also point out what they think as an author should better your work, can better your work. They can really help you improve, and that will matter a lot when you self-publish your book.
Yeah, actually, what I have seen,
go ahead, please.
No, actually, what I have seen, people write books and they directly go to editing. We have forgotten the concept of rewriting. There is a thing called second draft. There is a thing called third draft. And the rewriting is a very important process, a very important part of writing, because first draft will be a crap. So you need to rewrite it, because your character will come to life. Your characters will be
because the first
acting
draft
differently.
is you telling yourself the story. The first draft is nowhere near as as anything that you can put out. Then you have to write a second draft of it.
So I don't say to anybody that I'm editing my book. I'm actually rewriting it, to tell you the truth. I finished my book 2 months ago. I let it aside and then I picked it up just few days ago. And when I started reading it, I understood that there is no way I can edit it. I need to rewrite it. So I wanted to get it published on September 2020, but then I delayed. I said, fine, I don't need to rush. Be it on January 2021, but at least it would be a decent book, because 2 more installments would be coming.
That's exactly the point I'm talking about, taking your time with it. Because writing one draft is nothing actually. I mean, there's one author, I think it was Jeffrey Archer, who said that if I've got youngsters coming up to me and saying that they've written a book, and the first thing I ask is how many drafts you've written, and they say 1. I think you have not written a book at all. You have just imagined in your head. You have imagined writing a book. You have not written a book, and I think it's absolutely true. Writing one draft is not enough. Never
you need to rewrite it, because this concept of rewriting, I don't see any writer talking about rewriting. Means they say editing is coming, like winter is coming, in the same tone, but nobody talks about rewriting is coming. But rewriting is very important process. Means they need to rewrite.
Because editing sounds better. When you say I'm editing the book, it just sounds better. So people go with that.
No, I'm rewriting mine. Yeah.
Even when
rewriting sounds like a lot of work, like you're rewriting all the scenes again, and
no, but I'm being honest here.
It somehow sounds like the writer wasn't happy with what they wrote, and they're just rewriting it.
Yeah, but
people take that as rewriting. It's not that. It's just speaking and choosing the right way to do it. Yes, Mahesh.
I feel that rewriting is also part of editing. Whenever you submit your book to an editor, his job is not simply to correct your spelling or typographical mistakes. There are certain inconsistencies in the plot itself. Some parts are not working properly. In those cases, the editor gives his opinion or comments in the margin section that this part needs to be rewritten, this part needs to be written from this particular point of view, or in this particular voice, or these are the inconsistencies. So we cannot separate editing and rewriting. Of course, I agree that you have to write multiple drafts, but I feel that rewriting is also part of editing, and a good editor will always require some parts of your book to be rewritten. His job is not simply to correct the typographical errors.
No, it's not. But before I am publishing my manuscript to an editor, if I'm going for traditional publishing, I think it's my job to write at least two drafts
Of
of it.
course,
Make it
the
as good as
draft has to
possible
be a
from my
decent draft.
end.
Yeah.
Because
The draft
With
has to be decent.
alternative endings or alternative experiences, something like that.
I mean, Mahesh, you would know, in a country like India, editors don't have that much of time. They read 3 pages of your book and they just decide that whether they want to go forward with it or not.
Even if they read 3 pages, you are lucky.
Yeah, that's if they
First
read 3
page.
pages.
Merely by reading the proposal and the pitch.
The first page. The first page. That's why they like
19%.
first page and first line. Those are the things they will read first line and they will decide whether they want to read the first page or not. Once they read the first page, they might read the second page. So this is the scenario. So you need to means 2 drafts are mandatory, means first and second draft.
Yes.
Then you can decide whether you want to go to the third draft or not. But before that, I would suggest you go for a reader, means a community who can tell you whether
Yeah.
go for another draft or not. But there is nothing called perfect book. So there will always.
How many of you are paranoid about sending out your manuscripts to people in any writing community? Because I know of people who are just paranoid that their work are going to be plagiarized.
They will.
So these are the days when even beta readers are charging money.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
And if somebody is doing the job pro bono for you, then you will never receive the feedback. That person will tell it, I was busy with such and such thing, I did not
then
get
you
time.
send it to your friend. Actually, you send it to a booktuber. Na? That booktuber will charge you money because they have already created the community and everything. But that is also a very important part of promotion right now. You know, sending books to
Promotion,
booktuber.
I won't name, but there is one particular girl on Facebook. She's very beautiful, and she just holds your book in her hands and she posts the pictures and she charges for it. Authors are going to
Facebook and Instagram. Actually, Bookstagram is running because of that only. Means the Bookstagram is holding the book and posing for the camera, and people see that and they buy. Actually, I buy. Means I follow a few booktubers. I see their recommendations and I buy. I bought the Night Circus after watching BookTube. I bought this thing.
But the one question which I want to put to all of you is that how much amount of money should you spend in all these activities? Should you set a budget, or somebody spending a lakh, so I have to spend another lakh? I mean, everybody has got his or her personal constraints.
Absolutely.
So how are we going to figure that out?
Absolutely, means like it is different. Means like the more you want to spend, the more you can spend here. So the spending option is
at
unlimited.
the end of the day, it is your belief in your work. I think that sets the budget itself. Like if I'm
for everyone, his
if
book
I'm
is going
sure
to be
that
the
this is not
bestseller
going to
only.
sell. Yes, if I'm sure that this book is not going to sell that much, I'm not going to waste more than a few thousand, not even a few thousand rupees on it. But if like I'm very sure that this is going to be a success or something, then I can spend a lot. It just depends on what you believe the words to be. But yes, can't
Which
just go on
author
spending
believes that
without
his work is
self-esteem.
bad? For every author, his book is a potential bestseller. This is the best in the world.
The world is a bad guy.
I would like to get Spencer's thoughts on this.
Yeah.
On this particular question.
Oh goodness, I'm sorry, I forgot exactly what.
The budget.
Because you called on me, my mind just blanked. I'm like, wait, what?
That is a writer way. It's a budget. How much budget? How much should you spend on a book promotion? Or that was the thing we were discussing.
How much would you spend on your book? How much money would you be okay with spending on your book?
It's definitely an investment. The more money that you put into it, the more you could definitely see out of it, because if you put the right amount of advertising and get the right people, then it could really come back to you. But if you happen to spend it wrong, or you buy, I've heard so many stories of people who've bought thousands of copies of their books to sell, expecting to sell so much, and now they've only sold 5 of them, and they have a whole spare bedroom in their house filled with these copies of their book. But I have heard of websites in which you can work with them so that they will take on the publishing aspect of it and they will incur that cost. So if I were to do my book through them, I would get 75% of the profits and they would get 25, but they would take care of all of the ebook stuff, the physical book stuff, shipping everything. And sometimes for things like that, it's definitely worth the investment.
I have got a couple of friends who have spent a lot of money on marketing. But the thing is that they did not write beyond one book. They spent so much that second book never came.
I think the success of an ebook or a self-published book also depends on the author's expectation out of it. I mean, and strictly personally speaking, I mean, for my last book, I did not expect that book to sell 1,000 copies or even 500 or 600 copies. I think it sold about 200 copies, and I think so, I'm not even sure. And I'm happy with it because my point with this book was to get my name out there, to get some reviews. So that was my point, and I achieved that, and to me it was a success. Now, I think it also matters is what you're aiming for. You know, if you're always going for the brass ring, then you will be disappointed, and you will not write on the book. So I think you should keep your expectations according to your surroundings, according to what you can achieve at that point of time. You know, not sort of compare yourself with what somebody else is achieving.
Correct.
I think there's no point in that. Okay, so I think we have 5 minutes left. So I think I'll ask one last question and let all of you answer that. Where do you see the self-publishing industry in 3 to 5 years time from today?
It will grow. Certainly it will grow because we are getting multiple platforms with the advent of information technology, so many websites, so many platforms. So it is bound to grow. No doubt about that.
I wouldn't be surprised if it became the primary form of publishing at some point in the future.
Anusha, where do you see the self-publishing industry in 5 years?
So I think the shift that has happened from Quora to Medium, I can feel a lot of people driven by the factor that they can earn out of their writings. Many people used to write for their own hobby or their own pleasure, but I think they're changing it and they're refining it and then choosing the self-publishing medium. It's definitely to grow, but mediocrity also scares me because I also personally, when I started, I also made those same mistakes. So which I'm trying to rectify, and I brought my books down because I've now put them out for free on my blog. They can be read, and I'm just seeking the honest reviews. And even for that matter, I always put my books for free every month for a day because I only had 5 days in KDP Select that I can put my book for free. So my intent was just to get my books out there and seek honest reviews and not just make sales. So that way, I think mediocrity also scares me, and that could affect a lot of independent writers. So I think there is a lot to come, but I'm also worried that it should not sink us all who are actually getting better, and we want our work to be seen and stand out. So that will also be a factor which will scare me. So that's about it.
Shubhangi?
Like everybody, I do agree that it is bound to grow, it is bound to expand, and I think that in times to come, there will be better platforms which will not only provide us with an inbuilt readership and, we'll have to spend less, but it will also be, it would also provide some quality content, just not some messed up or haphazard work. It would be something
Poorly
quality, and
written.
it would be some quality content you will get out of self-publishers. So I'm hoping something of that sort would happen, that would help, that would make us pivot from traditional publishers to self-publishers. As readers, we would like to go for self-published authors.
Adia?
I think I agree that the self-publishing industry will grow. It is bound to grow because, as long as there are people, as long as, you keep, sometimes people self-publish when they believe in their story, but the publishing houses keep rejecting it. Like, because they don't believe it will trend or work or sell. So I think, as long as publishing houses, don't accept new voices that keep coming out every now and then, people will self-publish their books. And I just hope that we understand the value of editing and rewriting and making the book better more, so that the self-publishing industry can not only grow but it can better itself.
Exactly.
I just hope. I just hope that's what it turns out to be.
Yeah, I think I agree. I completely agree with that. And I also think that the onus is on all of us who are self-published writers to keep a certain standard and quality so that the industry grows. It doesn't become a laughing stock that whoever cannot write well goes into the self-publishing industry, because there is a notion like that among some people. I think we should all strive to do that, collectively. Not look at the whole thing as I'm publishing one book and my job is done. I think I should also think how my book is going to affect another book. I think that's important, personally. Okay, so I think we are done for today. I think time's up. So thank you all of you for coming here, spending 1 hour.
It was an amazing session.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I really loved it. Thank you so much.
Informative.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to all of you.
Yeah, same here.
Same here.
Same here.
I mean, I think we'll see all of you again for sure.
Okay, so I'm ending the call now. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
Bye bye.
Yeah,
Awesome.
bye-bye.
Take care all. Stay safe.
Bye.